Hey folks, welcome to the next episode of The Main Scoop. I'm delighted here to have with me my co-host Daniel Newman and part-time host Joe Doria. And we're going to take you through the biggest insights we've had through the past year of doing this. Kind of our favorite concepts and discussions that we've had. This all started about starting the discussion and engaging everybody across the ecosystem, whether they be customers, partners, vendors, visionaries in the space, to talk about what really drives success with technology and share everybody's perspectives. We're delighted that you've been with us for over a year now, and we're going to keep continuing the discussion. So let's dive into kind of...
Yeah. You know what? Can you believe we've been doing this for a year? And here we are. Another city. I mean, we've been in Times Square. You had the big boards behind us. Remember that?
Now we got the big bridge.
We got the big bridges
in New Orleans.
Of NOLA. But we've been around when we've talked to some really fascinating people. And when we got together, it was really about bridging the process of technology's evolution inside of the enterprise for large companies, for government entities, global companies, managing data, handling privacy, security. There's so many things going on.
Including, we did that live audience scoop together, you and I.
That was,
I remember that.
Atlanta.
Yeah, it was a good time, and the guests we had some great insights, and that's what this is all about: is getting to those insights and how those can be shared with the ecosystem, with our customers, our audience. That's what it's all about.
Like a favorite moment, or we've been doing this a little while. Kind of what's stuck for us.
We're each going to share ours, right?
Right.
So, go ahead.
And I'm up first. We had Terran Chopra from IBM on talking about AI. He called it business transformation opportunity, and that was a great discussion. What I really liked about that is the idea that you can't be on the sidelines with where AI is going and how fast it's going. You cannot be on the sidelines, but you have to be doing it responsibly. We also had Andrea Bodnari from United Health Group on, and wow, what a great thought leader in the AI space, and her perspective on healthcare and the different cases that are going on there, where there's a lot of regulation, a lot of different things going on. For me, the big takeaway on AI is, and I'm interested in your take on this, Daniel, is how do you do it responsibly?
Yeah, so it's flying past us, and in the sense, every enterprise is sort of weighing up how quickly do we adopt it, how do we deploy it, how do we make sure the data is trusted. We kind of heard about this, rapid onslaught of, certain companies may own markets because they had LLMs. And then we found out that LLMs were kind of a commodity in many ways. And now you've got these, open source communities, much, like Mainframe had, coming up and saying, well, you don't need to, it doesn't need to be proprietary. We can, and then you're hearing things like, well, it's not going to be about the big, large language, because those are somewhat commoditized. It's going to be about the foundational models that are built, that are going to be healthcare oriented, or they're going to be financial services oriented. And then all of a sudden you think, our business, we're not getting disrupted. We become more important, whether that's cloud or whether that's mainframe, is because this is going to be all about being able to layer, silicon, layer infrastructure, layer software in a way that can deliver solutions that are safe, that are accurate, that are valuable. And I think that's at least where some of our insights were coming from. You kind of saw this story evolving.
Definitely. I think, though, it's easier said than done. If you look at trying to figure out how do you deal with bias, how do you really, cleanse the data and make sure that the data sort of hits your core values as a business. And there's no opportunity for these generative models to kind of go sideways on you, which is why I think my view is you really have to be not on the sidelines, but doing it inside your business first, and looking for, the low-hanging fruit type of opportunities where you can be faster, better, smarter in your business, but really get the data right, get the training of the data and the model right, so that you're making decisions that actually can make you better in the marketplace. And so experimentation, learning, all that has to go on first before you get outside maybe and take on those opportunities.
But do you guys think we're at sort of an inflection? Like, it was like, oh my gosh, everybody get on board, and then it's kind of hit? I was just thinking about, like, from January to now, like, we built an AI engine for Futurum that would allow you to talk to an analyst using AI. And when I first started in January, it was like, well, we're gonna have to buy GPU access. We're going to have data sets. We're going to have to train it. And then within like 3 months, it was like Google's launched a generative AI app builder. Microsoft has an open Azure service, that you can just plug all the data right on top of your Power BI.
But then it gets into what data are you going to share and what are you going to own?
Oh my gosh,
Is it going to be
absolutely.
running in your environment? Is it going to be running in their environment? What other data and data sets are
Same
going to come into
question
it?
we've had with the cloud. I mean, literally, it brings up another. It's almost like, because AI is like this horizontal wrapper that wraps around your whole data. It's not a vertical. Everyone's like, well, is AI a tech? No, AI is a horizontal that sits on top of everything, but it's going to impact all our businesses, right? I mean, we're at this inflection, Joe. I mean, you listen to Andrea and you Tarun, and on these different episodes, right? I mean, it went really fast. Do we slow down, or is this one of those things that we have to sort of build the plane while it's in the air flying?
I wouldn't say do that, right, while it's flying. But I do think, it's kind of dangerous. But I do think that
As long as you can land it.
Andrea's point about it is horizontal, but the data has boundaries, and for an enterprise, I think a data has boundaries. So you're trying to build a model that can make decisions for your business, and that can be, bounded in a way where you can take on things and do it responsibly.
And I feel like you're both right. I do think you're building the plane while you're flying it, but you have guardrails and you have boundaries, right? So you're thinking about what insights and what data, what core knowledge that's unique to your business and proprietary for you that you let out, what you want to let escape. But you're also being careful and testing the insights and the inferences that you're finding to say, hey, does this make sense in the real world? Is there an undue bias in here that we might be missing? So you're flying the plane, but you're probably doing it without passengers on board, and you're checking to see where it's going. You're making sure you can land it, but you got to be moving faster.
Well, the body's built, the engines are on it, to keep the analogy, but maybe you're putting the interior on it.
Yeah, but you don't want to be left behind.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I think you spent a lot of time talking about AI. And I think the one thing we realize, and with great insights from, like hearing from Andrea at United Health Group, is that the complexities and the considerations are enormous right now. And what's at stake is everything from kind of your traditional security all the way to really how patients can feel like they're being served and given the type of care that healthcare, frankly, has struggled to deliver to patients. And we can talk about something similar in financial services later, because I might be wrapping that up in a little bit. But let's go, Greg. You had a great conversation. I know he always mocks me. This is actually a lot of fun.
I was
You should join
mirroring
us.
you. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
One of the conversations that we did have about best-in-class companies and outperforming in technology, that was the one that really stuck with you.
It did. And if you think about this whole discussion, we have different opinions on how fast you should run into generative AI. We've seen this play over and over and over, right? I mean, mainframe technology where you could carry programs forward was the big, new thing, the aha, that you could build and expand programs on top of what you had already done instead of everything being rip and replace. And then we had the advent of the PC, and that, everybody was just going to have a PC on their desk, and you weren't going to need big computers anymore. And people kind of went, oh, wait a minute, we got to share data. And you had floppy disks being traded around, and then you got into client server. And history keeps repeating itself, that a new technology comes out and everybody thinks it's the panacea. It's the thing that's going to be the be-all, end-all, that's going to solve everything. And that comes from, the new technology was invented because it could do something better. Something, not everything. Right. So, and we had Dr. Howard Rubin as a guest on the show, and we talked about that. He looked at businesses across a whole bunch of industries and wanted to figure out the ones that were more successful than others. What were they doing? And he thought about it as kind of like an investment portfolio. There's a lot of choices you have in IT, and as we talked about it, nobody would have been surprised to hear the more successful companies were more heavily invested in cloud. They were investing more than kind of their average competitors. But the real insight was those same companies that were more successful were also investing more heavily in mainframe. the big insight isn't about mainframe or cloud or this. It's an and. It's about hybrid IT. It really boils down to the most successful companies look at a new technology that comes out and go, wow, what can this help me do better or different? And then how do I tie it into everything that I'm accomplishing to get the best answer to the problem, to provide the best solution? That's what winners do. They're always thinking about how they're going to provide the best. They're not thinking, oh, this is the answer, what the heck is the question? They're bringing the best to bear.
So we talked about AI, and I call AI the next 10 years of digital transformation will be AI. But the last 10 years of digital transformation, and I've written 7 books, 6 of them on digital transformation. So I'm going to tell you some thoughts and some things about this. Was, technology and people are really what digital was. This whole digital transformation movement was companies that could basically get their people to leverage and utilize this next generation of tech. Was really when they say best in class companies outperform. Mm-hmm. It's about picking the right technologies and building cultures that embrace that technology. I think what Dr. Rubin said that was really so prophetic is the fact is picking those right winners and losers, because there's so many options every day in technology. You can pick this SaaS option, this AI tool, this productivity suite. You can go to, you could have Blackberries, you could have iPhone, and there was always this choice. There was always this choice of which technology you want to invest in. But in the end, it's about picking the technology, and it's also then about getting the adoption. And that was the 2 things I think we really pieced together. And we're going to see the same thing in the AI era. It's going to be about investing in this technology and then getting people in AI to work together.
But none of this is ever about picking the best singular technology.
No, but
it's about picking technology for a given problem and then tying it together.
Yeah, I mean, for me, in the marketplace, talking with customers and sharing this Dr. Rubin data is like a big aha moment for them in the way that you're talking about it, Greg, where it's like, hey, it's not just about one platform or another in terms of that asset portfolio, but the performance of the best in class and how they're leveraging the different parts of it. Of course, this is the main scoop. So the mainframe is probably the biggest eye opener in there, being a bigger investment and a bigger return on investment for the leaders in that space.
I think even the way people have been being trained for years perpetuates this idea, right? If you think about IT, technologists, people tend to be a this or a that expert, right? I'm a cloud guy, I'm a mainframe person, I'm a COBOL programmer or Java or whatever.
It's tribal.
And right, and the reality is, if you look at a CIO's role and a CIO's scope, they have to provide capability across the whole enterprise, and they can't be just an expert in one thing. They have to pull together the best technologies for the best outcome.
Well, being dynamic and understanding that the tech is a pendulum that swings kind of back and forth, and at the same time it's a continuum that evolves. Mm-hmm. And so any company that invests in a single tech and says this is our thing, right? We've seen this happen. I mean, cloud's a great example of it, because we saw everyone's like, we're going to do everything, and then you've seen the Andreessen Horowitz reports where they're like, yeah, there's a certain point where it's not the thing. And well, maybe it's economic, maybe it's technological, maybe it's a combination of both. But and with a capital A-N-D, it's and is really the answer. And that's why hybrids won in so many ways. And like in the world of mainframe, that's why so many of these large and regulated and very high reliability industries have said, we're absolutely not abandoning that. Mm-hmm. But we will use the cloud for some things as well.
And
we will find the way
together.
And by the way, this AI sprint, same thing. We're going to see this full sprint into it,
and over rotation,
and then people are going to pull a little bit.
A better application.
It's really the human condition. Yeah, it really is the human condition.
Wouldn't you say though that AI will converge and make this discussion about what platforms to use in your business and hybrid? It'll make that go faster and better too.
People are going to think about AI more through the lens of like, my CRM tools, my HR tools, my ERP. And what I'm saying is they're going to expect AI to be layered into it. And you're going to see that kind of shift from, hey, this is a very specialized thing with tons of developers and data science, to like, hey, this is a plugin with an API that we're going to connect to our tool.
But at the end of the day, and I don't mean a particular packaged application, but at the end of the day, technology should always be about the practical application of it. what is the problem or opportunity you're trying to address, and then what technologies can best get you.
We always make analogies about cars because we're all car folks on this, but we kind of talk about like there's the gearheads, right, that really care about all this. Most people just need to press the pedal, and I would say press the gas, but we don't even know anymore. Press the pedal and go, because you're really trying to get from point A to point B, and that's where technology lives in the enterprise. Now, we could spend all day on this, but the show it does expire in due time. So let's talk about what's most
your
important.
favorite?
Me. And what was my favorite. And I think we could have argued, any of the three of us probably in this current era and market would have picked AI. And we would have picked AI because that's just kind of the thing right now. But you picked it, and I think you took priority or some reason. So now I had to pick something else that I think is very important, but it kind of has layers of multiple things in it. And that was when we talked to Joe Schuler at MasterCard. And one of the things
you guys did a fabulous job with that.
Yeah, I said we, and I looked at you, but it was actually us.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
I mean, I get that all the time, though.
Well, it's admiration. It's the Mutual Admiration Society. But one of the things that is changing so fast, and you hear about cryptocurrency, and you hear about payment rails, but the globalization of finance really does come down to the ability to safely transact and safely move currency around the world using applications.
There's probably still an AI sort of projection inside of. Oh, you're going there.
I was getting there.
Okay.
No,
right.
thank you. I was spinning a tall tale and telling stories. But as we sort of see this evolution of fintech and financial services, what we realize, and we've seen the stability of our banking system here in the U.S. has been under pressure. We've seen how things like rates and adjustment, and that's obviously very high level macro stuff, but on a very personal finance level, there's still a large part of the world that doesn't have access to traditional banking. Branch banking in the world of hybrid remote type work, I mean, do you really need to go into a branch? I mean, I still remember when a different bank, Ally, kind of said, people will always need banking, but will they always need banks? And that was the whole first idea of an app versus a retail scenario. And then you've got the rise of banks like SoFi and these other kind of fully digitalized banks. And then you see money being kind of converged. It's not just about your checking accounts. It's about your loans, your debt, your your investment portfolio, cryptocurrencies. It's transacting. I mean, we know as controversial as Elon Musk is, the X app is all about moving from a social app to kind of a social currency app. Looks more like what they're doing in China. So we're definitely seeing this kind of era where you're going to have transacting happening. We already kind of do with our Apple Pay and Samsung Pay and different mobile apps and Starbucks. I mean, we're transacting all day long on everything but with currency. It's kind of like money's become even kind of an idea rather than a thing, because most of us never have it. If you have cash in your pocket right now, I'd be surprised. So
we
you
both
look
do,
at,
but
Yeah, I think you made me pull out my wallet in the Joe Schuler conversation.
right, I actually might have a 5 in my pocket because I had to tip someone when I was on vacation or something. But some of the best experiences, like Starbucks, I mentioned, like that app, like the experience is like some of the best on the planet. It's just the idea I can walk in and transact, and it knows my favorite drinks, and it knows my behavior, and it knows where I am, and it just does all this very naturally.
Yeah, so the
while
market,
living.
the marketing.
and you're willing to pay for that.
Well, you
Think
are
about
paying for it in
because-
some way.
Absolutely.
It's like a $6 cup of coffee.
But because you appreciate the value in it, right?
Look at Uber.
So that's the whole idea about the apps. It has to provide something of value that is going to attract customers.
The experience is the value. I mean,
for a lot
Uber
of people.
has won in so many markets because nobody had wanted to have to pull out a credit card at the end of every ride and have to transact in the machine. And you just get in the car, you get out of the car. The money moves. You don't ever think about it.
I just want the driver to get out so I can drive.
You were touching on it, but I do think the client experience and is the big transformation opportunity,
And that's why you're willing to pay more.
Right, the value, I get it. The value leads to an experience that you want, and that's where there's a big opportunity. I'm the marketing guy here, so we're looking at how client experiences can evolve.
You don't
and
just
be
go
better.
to Joe's Coffee to pay $2. You're willing to pay $6 because of the experience with
Well,
Starbucks.
the tech that underlies it, though, is probably the important thing, is that you have core infrastructure. You have to have secure data. You have to be able to transact millions of times securely, have money moving from server to server.
And that's the minimum
And you need
expectations
speed.
today.
And you need to happen speed, and it needs to be completely ubiquitous in our life. So it's very, very exciting how
But that's the
financial
always
technologies.
on minimum
And
expectation.
again, the first thing we think about might be MasterCard. We might think about a banking app. But what we really just talked about is the fact that financials and our entire lives have been commingled into an app environment that's secured by infrastructure, that's built on top of apps, and it's creating a really fluid experience for us on this earth. It's so much better than what we had to do before when we actually, I know, pull your dollar bill out of your pocket, but for the rest of us
20
that are
years
embracing
later,
new technology, it's pretty darn exciting.
20 years later, think, how long ago did you start drinking coffee?
Oh goodness, I was young when I became a dad, so probably about 21. I didn't drink it until I started having kids.
20,
I need to stay awake.
20 years ago, you could just go anywhere and get a cup of coffee. Now you don't even get a cup of coffee without technology. Technology is pervasive in our lives. In everything.
Even
we
my
do.
Keurig is kind of a cool little technological
Probably
machine
Wi-Fi
that's changed the world. But guys, it has been a lot of fun having this conversation. We could wrap on for a long time, and all the little jostling and jousting we like to do, add some time here. But you got to acknowledge that after all this time, all these cities, all these conversations, there's so much value here. And if you actually think about maybe the way that fintech story is, we're spinning kind of tales that are very technologically driven, but then are also very much in our lives, like feeling private, like our data is private and secure. How important is that in our lives? The impact that AI has to enable systems to do more, or that CX has to actually create these next generation user experiences that impact the way we do retail, that impacts the way we interact with our vehicles and our cars, or that allow us to keep in touch with family and friends. I mean, it's very, very exciting, but it doesn't happen on its own.
Nope.
And I think that's really what the main scoop is all about, is tying those really big, hairy, challenging infrastructure problems and taking it all the way out to those user experiences that enable industries, including the most secure and the most difficult in the planet, to continue to deliver those experiences.
I'll add to that too, I think, for our audience, the main scoop. Underneath everything you're talking about, tying all that together, mainframe infrastructure, running all those transactions securely, doing it in a hybrid environment. And
I wasn't going to be that specific, but that's why you came on.
That's why I came on, to hit that note.
And hey, everybody, we're all having fun doing this, and we want you to continue to join us. This has been the Main Scoop with Joe Doria, Dan Newman, and myself, Greg Lotko. Join us next time.